holding Hillary responsible. The parents of 2 Americans killed in Benghazi sue the Democratic presidential candidate for wrongful death. Real fix or big bust? Donald Trump's ambitious plan to boost the economy is dismissed by Hillary Clinton as big tax breaks to rich people. Showdown in Rio. American Lily King beats a Russian swimmer with a doping record to take the gold. And following Francis, more than 3 million people now follow the Pope's Instagram account. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, August 9th, 2016. Good evening from Washington. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick. Parents of 2 Americans killed in Benghazi 4 years ago sue Hillary Clinton, claiming she's responsible for the deaths. And Donald Trump faces new challenges from members of his own party. Jason Calvi reports tonight on setbacks both nominees face in their runs for the White House.
Brian, a top House Republican staffer is launching his own run for the White House. It's part of a growing list of Republicans who say the GOP nominee is unfit for the Oval Office. Donald Trump himself, though, is firing back. Maine Republican Senator Susan Collins says she won't vote for Donald Trump.
He simply does not have the restraint and the consideration and the judgment and the knowledge.
And 50 national security leaders who served Republicans say Trump would be a dangerous president. Former CIA Director Michael Hayden and former Homeland Security Secretary Tom Ridge signed that letter. But Donald Trump dismisses them, saying they are nothing more than the failed Washington elite looking to hold on to their power. Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy tells CNN the Never Trump movement is dying.
There's a choice between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And to try to tank that right now, I think is a foolish errand and will be unsuccessful.
But Evan McMillan, a top Republican aide, is now running as the alternative candidate.
I'm trying to offer the American people something they can vote for as opposed to voting against.
Democrat Hillary Clinton faces her own problems tonight. The parents of 2 Americans killed in Benghazi, Libya, have filed a wrongful death lawsuit against her. Charles Woods and Pat Smith claim she was negligent and reckless and compromised American security by using a private email server while she was Secretary of State.
If Hillary Clinton can't give us the truth, why should we give her the presidency?
Clinton is in Miami today, in the neighborhood of the first U.S. outbreak of the Zika virus.
So pass the bipartisan bill from the Senate.
Her campaign defends Clinton's actions during the Benghazi attacks, saying no evidence of wrongdoing has been found. The Clinton campaign says it didn't know the father of the Orlando nightclub shooter was at Clinton's rally last night in Florida. The campaign says they didn't invite him. Omar Mateen, his son, killed 49 people, injured more than 50 at that nightclub back in June. Brian?
Thank you, Jason Calvi. And House Speaker Paul Ryan faces Paul Nellon in Wisconsin's Republican primary today. That race drew national interest after Donald Trump initially refused to endorse Ryan. Trump's belated endorsement of Ryan Friday was seen as a payback for Ryan's reluctance to endorse Trump in the spring. It only came after Nellon received major airtime and attention. Now, polls in Wisconsin have consistently shown Ryan with a better than 80% voter support. Steve Bell, senior fellow at the Bipartisan Policy Center and former staff director of the Senate Budget Committee, is with us. Steve, Trump laid out his economic plan in Detroit yesterday. Hillary Clinton will do that on Thursday. How do these two plans compare as you see them?
They actually try to do the same thing, Brian. They try to increase the growth of the economy. You know, at some point we were between 3.5% and 4% real growth was normal for this economy. Now we're down to 2 to 2.5%, and a lot of that's demography. So what we have here is somebody saying, I'm going to spend a lot more money, Clinton, and the other one saying, I'm going to cut taxes like you've never seen before, and that's Trump. Both ignore the fact that the debt and the deficits are increasing as we speak.
So you're taking substantial risk here for long-term gain. Would the risk bring about the gain, and what kind of gains, benefits are we talking about?
First of all, if we get back to 4% real growth, lots of things good will happen. Not just unemployment, but deficits will decline, our gross national debt will slow in its increase, And you'll really get rid of this feeling people have now of having been passed by. The problem is, that's the long-term gain. The short-term problem is that you really are going to increase deficits. And if interest rates go up, when deficits go up, and they might, then you face very large interest payments on the debt.
Steve, what strikes you most about the economic discussion in this election year?
Two things. One, almost no discussion of debt and deficits now that John Kasich is out of the scene.
You don't hear anything about it anymore.
No, he was the last one. That was about 4 or 5 months ago, I guess. And the second thing is that people are not being really honest and straightforward. We need more immigration if we're going to continue to have a relatively youthful population. Otherwise, it's going to be increasingly aged people. Social Security, nobody wants to do anything except increase that. Medicare, other pensions and Medicaid. You add interest, and that's about 2/3 of the entire federal budget.
How much is the economy a key issue for voters this time around compared with past campaigns?
I remember the famous Bill Clinton, "It's the economy, stupid." Well, I think you could say that right now. Yes, national security is kind of increasing. It's number 2. But I think a lot of people still are suffering from the Great Recession and the slow recovery we had. So I'd say the economy is number 1.
So people still voting with their pocketbooks?
Yes, sir.
All right. Steve Bell, Bipartisan Policy Center. Thanks for your expertise. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. The first Zika-related infant death is reported in Texas. Doctors say the baby, who died in a suburban Houston hospital a few weeks ago, had microcephaly linked to the Zika virus. The baby's mother traveled to El Salvador while she was pregnant. The only other U.S. Zika-related death was an elderly Utah man who suffered from various health conditions. Meanwhile, there are now 17 confirmed mosquito-spread Zika cases reported in Miami, Florida, in a particular neighborhood there. A federal judge ordered to resentence Rod Blagojevich stays with the original 14-year term for his corruption conviction. A U.S. district judge ignored pleas for leniency from the former Illinois governor's wife and daughters. Blagojevich was eligible for resentencing after an appeals court threw out some convictions. They were related to his alleged attempt to sell an appointment to President Barack Obama's former U.S. Senate seat. In reaching his decision, the judge said these are serious crimes that had an impact on the people of Illinois. Delta cancels more than 500 flights today after Monday's mess that left air travelers stranded worldwide. About 1,000 flights were canceled Monday, 3 times that many delayed. An outage at Delta's Atlanta headquarters instigated a global meltdown of its booking and communications systems. Now the airline's trying to find seats for tens of thousands of stranded passengers on already full flights. Delta offered travel waivers and vouchers to many of those affected. Turkey's president gets cozy with Russia's Vladimir Putin, saying the two nations can rebuild damaged ties. After meeting today with Putin, Recep Tayyip Erdogan calls Putin his dear friend. He says Turkey is ready to implement a natural gas pipeline project with Russia. The two are also working on a deal to build Turkey's first nuclear power plant. Putin says Russian tourism to Turkey, halted after the downing of a Russian jet, can now resume. Pope Francis sends condolences after Monday's attack on a hospital in Quetta, Pakistan. 70 people, most of them lawyers, were killed in a shocking suicide bombing. The attack stunned the judicial community. The Pakistani Bar Association calls for lawyers to boycott courts in protest.
Enough is enough. We cannot lay our blood and we cannot sacrifice our people, our families more. We have been suffered. We have raised facing terrorism. Enough is enough. Is now the state has to take a firm action or the responsible governments need to go home.
Monday's attack underscores concerns that militants are still capable of striking in the heart of Pakistan's cities and towns. This in spite of the government's assurances that it's dismantling various terror networks. American Lily King wins her showdown with Yulia Efimova after bad blood between them over the Russians' doping record. Staring Efimova down before the race, King led all the way, taking the gold with a time of 1 minute, 4.93 seconds. Efimova, greeted by a round of boos, a few cheers, settled for silver. King was critical of Efimova being allowed to compete in the Rio Games. The Russian served a previous 16-month suspension for doping and tested positive again this year. Coming up, Pope Francis rules on social media. We explore his new milestone. And we show you where some U.S. Olympians hang out when they're not competing. Today, August 9th, we celebrate the memorial of Edith Stein, St. Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, the German Jewish philosopher converted to Catholicism, eventually taking vows as a discalced Carmelite nun. She died a martyr at the Auschwitz concentration camp. Thanks for joining us this Tuesday evening. I'm Brian Patrick, and the Vatican announces the Instagram account of Pope Francis now has more than 3 million followers. The Holy Father launched his own account at Franciscus on the photo-sharing app only 5 months ago. The Vatican's decision to open the account is rooted in the Pope's conviction pictures can reveal many things words can't. The papal Instagram account tells the story of the pontificate of Pope Francis through candid photos. Alan Holdren is Rome Bureau Chief for EWTN's Catholic News Agency. Alan, working there in Rome, you witness in person what this account captures in photos. What do you think it is that attracts so many people to Pope Francis on social media?
I think it's really just him showing who he is. People like this Pope all over the world. They want to follow this Pope, and one of the closest ways they can do that from wherever they are is through the social media accounts. You imagine he's got 3 million followers on this Instagram account, through which he follows no one. So, I mean, it's really just people who are interested in him and what he's doing, and it kind of takes him a little behind the scenes, gives him a beautiful photo of the Pope, and a nice message from him as well. If you imagine, he's got more than 27 million followers also on his Twitter accounts, 9 different accounts. People want to hear from him, and he's a master of one-liners, so they get that directly from him.
Well, you folks at Catholic News Agency are very familiar with social media. You are strictly a digital platform and wildly successful on social media. What's your strategy?
Well, really, a Catholic News Agency exists along with its sister agencies in 4 other languages to evangelize through media. It was founded for the same reasons EWTN was, and that's why they are together at this point in time. The key, I think, to the success of the social media strategy is, one, that Catholic News Agency has often gotten there before a lot of other people. It provides the message there on, say, Instagram, just like Twitter, YouTube, Snapchat now, all of these places. It's there, it's from the very beginning, and it really pushes messages out through those means. And I think it's also an important factor to all of this is that the message is the gospel. People are really searching for that and are thirsty for it.
And there are so many people now on social media. About how many are you reaching, and who are these people?
Well, it depends on which social media platform we're talking about. On Facebook today, we've got 1.4 million followers just on the English language site for Catholic News Agency. We've got about 270,000 on Twitter. On Instagram, we've got about 160,000. These people they're different demographics. I mean, if you imagine on Instagram, it's mainly people in their teens and 20s up into their 30s. We've got a new social media platform called Snapchat, which really just reaches teens. We were looking at the numbers from the World Youth Day. We reached 35 million people across all of our languages through social media just for those 5 days of the Pope's visit up there to Poland. So it really is reaching a demographic that we couldn't otherwise reach through other media.
Sharing the good news, the Catholic News Agency and Rome Bureau Chief Alan Holdren. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome. 9 Olympic sports will be awarded 15 gold medals today in Rio. The competitions include 4 big battles in the pool and the dazzling women's team gymnastics title. Gold medalist swimmers Michael Phelps and Katie Ledecky of the United States reached for more gold. Phelps in the 200-meter butterfly, Ledecky in the 200-meter freestyle. On the mats, balance beams, and vaults, the U.S. women's gymnastics team hopes to turn its star power into gold. Marlene Morris Towns is a professor of marketing at Georgetown University. It's great to have you with us on News Nightly. So Rio faces a lot of negative press. You've got the Zika virus. There's pollution in the water there, security. Are the games able to pivot attention away from that?
I think that they have. I think leading up to the games, that's a lot of what the focus was on. That's a lot of what was being talked about in the media. But I think that once the athletes arrived and the competition started, I think that was quickly forgotten. I think even before they started, once the athletes moved in, they were so focused on what they were doing and focused on the games that I think it helped to shift our focus as well.
Let's talk about sponsorship deals. That's big in the Olympics. What do they look like in 2016 compared with previous years?
Well, I've noticed over recent years, more brands are willing to take a chance on an athlete and sponsor ahead of the win. It used to be in the early days with, the goal was to win gold and possibly end up on the Wheaties box after you had won. But I think that more often brands sponsor some athletes who have won before, so they know what they're in for going in. But I think that brands are more willing to take a risk on some of the up-and-coming stars or celebrities, the people that have gained some celebrity that people are watching. And I think brands like Under Armour especially have taken some risks and have won really big with that.
Does it put additional pressure on these athletes who are under a ton of pressure already?
I would imagine it has to at some point, perhaps early on. But I think really the athletes, especially because they're not professional athletes that are doing it for the pay, and a lot of them are really making a lot of sacrifices to be there. I think that they're so focused on what they've trained for all these years and what they're there to do. I think when they step into on the mat or into the pool, a brand is the last thing that's on their mind, and that's a good thing.
What happens to those deals, though, if they don't achieve the medals?
Well, some of the deals may be shorter lived. I think that some, though, have been able to carry those deals forward. So you have some athletes like Michael Phelps and Gabby Douglas going in who have medaled before, and they are already known commodities. People are already rooting for them, even if they don't win this time. So we saw, Gabby Douglas on the floor competition wasn't one of the ones that advanced. But I think that people still know her, still love her, still root for her, and I think that she still has star power.
Marlene, with so much money at stake, is this really family viewing, or is it the networks just trying to protect the bottom line?
Well, networks are definitely about the bottom line, but I think that it is great family viewing. I think that, as much as people have complained about the number of ads, and there are actually fewer ads than in the previous Olympics, I think that it's still really about the sport. It's about national pride. It's about cheering on these athletes that we know of and are really rooting for to do well. And I think it is really still great family television. And a pretty pure look at sports.
A bright spot in a world that gets pretty dark sometimes.
Yes.
Marlene Morris-Towns, Georgetown University, thank you for being our bright spot today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And some Americans in Rio for the Olympics hang out at a sweet spot with gorgeous beach views and chic lounges. We're going to take you there tonight. At the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio, one of the places to see and be seen is the USA House on Ipanema Beach. In the main meeting space, guests can relax and watch the games. It's become a home away from home for many of the athletes.
It was great. We haven't got a chance to spend time with our family, and we got to just relax and enjoy some time with them. For me, it's my mom's birthday tomorrow, so I gave her gift, which was really nice.
What used to be an indoor basketball and soccer area is now a large restaurant with a California theme. On staff are American and Brazilian chefs who serve up dishes of both cuisines.
Yeah, I think with our families rolling in, and they kind of had a private little event on the rooftop for us up there. It's beautiful. They've done a great job.
Upstairs, another focal point of the house is the Los Angeles 2024 exhibit.
So you can deep dive into any one of these specific venues if you want to learn a little bit more. So we'll go into downtown and I'll show you LA Coliseum.
It's a state-of-the-art interactive model of the city. Promoters hope will create a buzz for LA's bid to host the games. And finally, the rooftop terrace is another chill-out space. It's converted into a lounge with spectacular views of the beach and ocean.
The rooftop, I think, was the best, just because it's such a great view, and just, the two top three athletes already. I mean, this is day two, but it was a bronze medalist and silver medalist just hanging out, on the roof with their medals. So it was kind of a very cool, casual experience. So
the USA House is by invitation only. Invites usually extended to athletes, their families, VIPs, and donors. Up next, a new way for young people to learn and do what the church teaches. And a heartwarming story from Rome. We explain why this arguing elderly couple was happy police came to their home. Thanks for joining us this Tuesday evening for EWTN News Nightly. I'm Brian Patrick. Pope Francis says a new book about Catholic social thought holds the words of Christ in the church.
Perché Ducati è un po' dire un manuale di conoscenza.
Pope Francis saying DUCAT is a user's manual of knowledge and the way. The book from Ignatius Press was created to help young people know and live Catholic social teaching. It was released last month during World Youth Day in Krakow, Poland. Mark Brumley, President and CEO of Ignatius Press, joining us by Skype from San Francisco. Mark, DUCAT is being marketed as the Pope's dream. What is that dream?
Well, I think the dream is that young people would be formed in Catholic social teaching and then go out and act according to it. So as disciples of Jesus, they're going to take the teaching of the church as it relates to the social order and apply it. That's the dream.
Yeah, he wants at least 1 million to do this, perhaps the whole generation. How can DUCAT help to make that dream come true?
I think DUCAT can do that by being a clear, I've got it here, product placement moment, a clear, concise presentation of Catholic social teaching in a very attractive, four-color, youth-oriented format. So I think that's really how DUCAT can be helpful. It's also available as an app. So these things together can provide an understanding of what the teaching is and how to apply it.
Quickly explain that title, DUCAT.
DUCAT, well, we've got a series of books starting with UCAT, which was Youth Catechism. DUCAT is the do part of the Youth Catechism. The Youth Catechism explains what the faith is. DUCAT focuses on how to put it into practice. That's why it's subtitled What to Do.
Yeah, very catchy. Okay, DUCAT was released during World Youth Day. Do you think it provides the tools to live out church teaching among young people after all that excitement dies down?
I think it does. What I think UCAT brings to the table is clarity, attractiveness, and it covers a range of topics from abortion to xenophobia. And I know xenophobia starts with an X, but a wide range of topics. So I think that's one of the reasons why this can be such a powerful tool in helping young people live out their discipleship in our society.
Pope Francis seems very excited about this, even writing the foreword. How has our Holy Father drawn attention to this Catholic social teaching and really focusing this toward the younger generation?
Of course, he had a video that he created and he was involved with that launched DUCAT. Of course, there was also a presentation at World Youth Day. But I think more to the point, he's issued a challenge to young people and those who work with young people to really embrace DUCAT and embrace Catholic social teaching. And he also makes clear that this isn't about politics or political agenda. This is first and foremost about conversion of the heart. So if we don't have a conversion of the heart, then ultimately whatever we do in the social order, it gets reducible to social work or partisan politics and things of that sort.
Mark Brumley, Ignatius Press, the publisher of DUCAT. We appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Great being with you. God bless you.
Thank you. During this Jubilee Year of Mercy, the Church highlights God's compassion and forgiveness. Now, the Vatican wants to show the faithful and even those who may not believe how to live out the works of mercy. Mary Shovlin reports.
For the Jubilee of Mercy, the Pope's charity arm hopes that seeing leads to believing. The Vatican office in charge of distributing papal funds for humanitarian projects produces a video each month for the Year of Mercy. It shows a church on the move, mercy in action.
Pope Francis decided to promote the special Jubilee for Mercy, and we decided to follow his words and to try to show how the Catholic entities, Catholic institutions are working all over the world to promote the works of mercy. To see how priests, nuns, and also lay people are working with the people and in the middle of the people.
The first work of mercy we are going to present you is feeding the hungry.
The Vatican tapped filmmaker Leo Beltrami to produce the short videos. They cover everything from caring for the sick in Africa to feeding the hungry in Ecuador. No scripts, just real stories told by the people on the ground.
This woman started crying and telling, "Oh, thank you for doing this. You don't let us alone. You are presenting our stories, so thank you for being here."
As this extraordinary Jubilee of Mercy draws to a close, these videos remind us there's still time for extraordinary action. In Rome, Mary Shovlin, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Mary. And finally tonight, police in a Rome neighborhood come to the rescue of an elderly couple with plates of pasta. Neighbors called police one recent hot summer night complaining of loud shouting between the 94-year-old man and 89-year-old woman. Officers soon realized there was no crime in progress, just two souls to reassure. So they cooked dinner for the couple, married now for 70 years, scraping up ingredients from their kitchens, spaghetti, butter, cheese, and a generous portion of humanity. They fixed a meal the couple ate with gusto. I guess sometimes people just need a little love and affection, or perhaps just good pasta. For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. Good night. God bless.